Okay, hello there. It's Paul Green from the business community doing another one of our regular business bulletins, focusing on helping people out with redundancies. So people that might be made redundant or facing redundancy. And I'm joined today by Russell Parker. Hi, Russell.
Hi, Paul.
So Russell has had the misfortune over his business journey to have been made redundant 3 times. So I thought it might be, I shouldn't be laughing really, sorry. So I thought it might be worth just listening to sort of Russell's story, how he's survived that, I guess, for want of a better expression, and just, where he is today and what some of maybe the opportunities were that he saw on that journey, that anybody listening to this that's in that sort of quite anxious position might be able to glean something from it. So I'm going to hand over to you, Russ. So I'll make you a little bit bigger on my screen. And yeah, if you just want to introduce yourself and just let people know what happened to you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name's Russell. I'm currently running QRB Management Consultants. We're a training organisation, and at the moment, we're really trying to help people in the redundancy situation kind of upskill to help them find their new roles. As Paul said, I have been in the redundancy process 3 times in my career, which some people would say was rather clumsy. But it's a situation that it's kind of happened as no fault of my own on every single occasion, but it always seems to feel that way. And I kind of wanted to share that experience with you this afternoon, because it's a very personal thing when it happens, and we all feel quite differently about it. So I just thought I'd share what happened to me on each of those occasions, just to give you an idea of what I went through, which is sometimes a little bit different to what the official process does, or what happens to you. So I just thought I'd kind of start with that, really. You're going to stay quiet there, Paul, in the background, yeah, and I'll just waffle on.
Yeah, I'll nudge you if it looks like you're drying up, Russell. Don't worry, you just carry on.
Okay, fair enough. Well, just to give you a bit of background to where I've been in my career, really. I've been in IT operations since about the mid '80s, and I moved into IT really because I bought a Sinclair ZX81 many years ago, and I quite enjoyed playing around with it. And I thought at the time, do you know what? I quite fancy a career in IT. And I managed to get a job as a mainframe operator. And another reason for moving into that arena as well was because my dad used to say to me, get a job in IT, son, and you'll be set for life. Yeah, you won't need to worry about being made redundant at all. So I was in this particular role for a couple of years. We'd gone through a project where we had replaced the mainframe that we had at the time with a newer model. And newer IT equipment tends to work quicker. And this particular machine was working about 30% faster than the old one. We had a team of 3 computer operators at the time running a 3-shift system. And with a machine running 30% quicker, well, I'm sure you probably see the situation. One of us had to go. And it was a little bit of a shock when it happened. And as I was the last one in, I was the first one out, because that was the general rule back in the 1980s, which I think is slightly different now. But yeah, I was in that situation where last one through the door, you're the first one out the door. Sorry, Russ, but you've got to go. Yeah. I was, what was I, in my early 20s at the time. I just bought my first property. I was kind of like on a skyrocket in my career at that time. I thought, yeah, there's nothing going to stop me this time. And all of a sudden, it was looking like it was coming to a shuddering halt, and it was a wee bit of a shock. But then I guess my first I didn't know this at the time, but looking back on it now, it was probably my first experience of the benefits of having a business network around me, because the engineer who came from the company that the mainframe was manufactured by, he heard that I was going to be made redundant, and he used to go and maintain all of the mainframes in the area belonging to this company, and he just said to me, he said, there's a job going at this other company. He said, I can put in a good word for you if you want. Yeah. So I was really kind of lucky that this happened, because the redundancy notice came in. I had a month notice I had to work. This was about a week afterwards. So I was almost into an interview situation and job offer almost straight away. And I think there was only a gap of maybe 1 or 2 weeks between me finishing one role and starting the next, which was quite lucky, you know. And the role I went to was actually a lot better than the role I'd just come out of. So although it felt quite a bit of a shock at the time, and I was a little bit worried about what was going to happen, I actually came out of that situation a little bit better off, if you like, yeah, which is sometimes what happens. So that was the first time I went through the process, and roll on a few years later, a couple of job posts later, found myself working for an IT services company in Findon, and this company primarily did applications for IBM AS400 equipment. And it had a very small operations support team that was kind of helping clients with their hardware issues off the back of us selling software into them. So we were I joined this operations support team. There was only 3 of us in that as well, but then spent quite a bit of time in that company going around different clients, helping them out, so on and so forth. And that was around about the time, I think, generally economically, the country was going through a bit of a hiccup. And as a support service company, the demand for our services started to drop. And we had a situation, I think it was one Friday afternoon, we were called into the meeting room, and the managing director effectively said to us, look, I've had to let some people go, and I think we lost something like about a third of the programming staff at that time. And he said, well, hopefully this will sort us out and we'll recover, etc. So this was almost like putting the writing on the wall in a way, having kind of experienced this once. I thought, this maybe doesn't look quite so good, but you never know, we might recover. Because you always go through this kind of shock, anger, denial curve whenever this kind of thing happens. We all kind of went through, wow, kind of shock moment, and then we got into the denial bit, and it was kind of like, yeah, we'll be fine. But then in about 3 months after that, I think we lost some more of the application team, were made redundant, and I think we lost some administration staff as well at that point. We were okay as the operations team because we were the ones actually making profit at the time for the company. But you just had that feeling at that time that it wasn't going well. And I kind of started making a few moves to try and find another role just in case something kind of occurred. And at the time, I think I put an advert. I was living in Milton Keynes at the time, and I put an advert in the Milton Keynes Citizen, AS400 operations expert or something, 28 years old, dark hair, good sense of humour, looking for a role in the Milton Keynes area. And fortunately got a phone call from this guy who worked for a company that was associated with Coca-Cola Schweppes. And he said, well, look, I'm probably going to need somebody, but not just yet. So if I can keep you in mind. And I said, yeah, fine, it's brilliant. Explain my situation. And we just left it at that. And I was quite happy carrying on doing the role I was doing, but knew I had all of a sudden had a nice little contingency in place, if you like, which then kind of kicked in because one Friday afternoon I was called into the managing director's office at 4 o'clock. Yeah, 4 o'clock on a Friday. Sorry, Russ, but we have to let you go. You know, and again, it's a weird feeling because I kind of knew it was coming because the signs were not good. Having been in the office every day for sort of 3 weeks, and you know you only make money for the company when you're out on the road visiting clients. The signs are there, but it's still a bit of a fright when it happens, you know. And that was because in the first instance I had a month to sort myself out. This was literally here's a check, clear your desk, goodbye kind of thing. And that was really it's like the breakup of a relationship, you know.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah.
It's it was upsetting. Even though I immediately I got back home and got on the phone to the guy that contacted me and said, this is now my situation. I think I went in for an interview the following Tuesday with him, and he offered me the job there and then. And I think again I started that one not long after I finished the first. And again that situation led me into a role which had more responsibility to it. It was a much more interesting role. It was with a much larger organization. Because although I started in a company that was supplying Coca-Cola Schweppes, we eventually got assimilated into the bigger machinery, if you like. So I ended up working for the bottlers of Coca-Cola in the UK at that time, and so that turned out to be really really good as well. So on those two experiences, I was not fearful of redundancy. It really didn't hold any fear for me. So actually, I was at Coca-Cola for nearly 10 years, and we had a bit of a swap of ownership because it was a franchise organization. We had an ownership change. Long story. But after the new owners came in, I was having a discussion with my boss and saying, well, what's the situation? Because new owners come in, there's always uncertainty, and there was rumours that there might be redundancies in the pipeline there. And I said to him, what's the situation? What does it feel like? And he said, no. He said, we're fine. He said, we're working to the right level. He said, they're not looking at losing people from the IT area. So he said, no, we'll all be fine. He said, you'll know when it's not when I stop talking about it. Now, I really should have picked up on that.
Yeah.
Because it was about 3 or 4 months later that I suddenly realized, my boss has stopped talking about redundancy.
Yeah.
And when I asked him about it, he would change the subject quickly. So I really should have been aware of that. But again, you get into this denial stage. No, it won't happen. It's a big company. I'm in IT. I'm absolutely safe where I am. And so it came again, this kind of Friday afternoon conversation at 3 or 4 o'clock, well, looks like we're going to be making redundancies, Russ. And your name came up. because at the time I was doing a role which was very business relationship biased. So I was looking a lot towards talking with the business managers to analyze their requirements for their IT solution. And we'd passed some of that over to the local engineers that were scattered around the country because we thought they would be in a much better position to do it. So I had actually shed some of my role off somewhere. So he said to me, well, because we've done that, he said, we're looking at making you guys redundant. There was, again, about 3 or 4 of us that did this. But he said, we don't particularly want to go through the process because as if you've been kind of tuning into these bulletins, you know that there's a process that you need to go through where you need to evaluate people's job roles, etc. And it takes quite a while to go through all the different steps. And he said, it will take a while, but we want to do it quicker. So if you wouldn't mind kind of volunteering, we'll give you a much better package to go than if we were to go through the process and make you redundant. This is a bit, it's a bit like when you look at a contract with a supplier. As soon as you're trying to check in contracts, your time's up, kind of thing. Yes, I could have stayed and said, well, let's go through the process, and I might have stayed, but the relationship would have been soured then. Or I decided to say, okay, well, let's cut it and let's go. I'd only just passed my MBA at that time as well. So in my mind, I was thinking, hey, I'm in a great position here. I've got 20 odd years, about 15 years IT experience behind me. Been involved in support, in management, been doing project management for quite some time, had an MBA, other technical qualifications. How difficult is it going to be to get another role? Yeah. So I thought, yeah, we'll go. So left that organization, voluntarily redundant, and then hit a real struggle because this time, although the previous twice they'd worked out really well, this time was to prove really, really troublesome in finding something else. It was a difficult position to find a new role. I didn't at that time have any project management qualifications behind me. I had experience at managing projects, but when I was trying to pick up contract work with project management, it was all about, well, have you got this qualification or that qualification? And when I was saying no, it was kind of like, well, sorry, but we're not interested. Job roles I was applying for, because I put my MBA on my CV, job roles I was applying for, I wasn't even getting into interview with. And this went on for about 6 months. And it was starting to really hurt kind of financially because the settlement I'd had was rapidly drying up. And it was all looking a bit difficult sort of financially at that point. And I had a chat with one of the agencies I was with at the time, and he said, people look at your MBA and they say you're overqualified. Okay, well, let's take it off then and see what happens, and as soon as I took it off, I started to get a bit of interest from companies, even though it was contract work. I'm not looking at staying permanently in these organizations. It's just like a month or 2 at a time. But they just didn't want to know because of the MBA. But as soon as I took it away, I started to get the odd kind of week's work coming through, and I managed to pick up a little bit temporarily, but the permanent stuff was still kind of non-existent, really. So it was a real struggle during that time, and it was only after about a year Actually, if I remember rightly, we just had the notification from the building society that they were going to repossess the house.
Wow.
It,
Okay.
it
Yeah.
got to that
Serious.
much of it got to that much of a desperate situation.
Mm.
I had a phone call from an agency on a Friday who said, "Well, there's a possibility of some work on Monday if you want it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, throw it my way, please. Need it. And that was in Leicester. And he said to me, he said, "Okay, I'm just putting the final touches on it." He said, "But I'll probably need to send you something tomorrow morning," which was the Saturday. And yeah, fine, absolutely. And I hung by the phone all through Saturday morning, nothing. I called them a couple of times, got no reply on the phone. And so it came to like the Monday morning. I'm thinking, what do I do?
Mm.
He told me where this job was actually on the Friday, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go. I'm going to drive from Daventry, which is where I'd moved to by then, up to Leicester, and I'll hover in Leicester city centre and see what happens. Yeah. Called this guy about 8:30. I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "No." He said it didn't come off. Well, that's a shame because I'm actually sat outside the front door of the building, and he immediately backtracked a little bit, and he went, "Oh, right, okay." Oh no, he said, "Hang on, give me 10 minutes." And he phoned the guy in the organisation that I was outside, and he came back to me and he said, "Well, okay, seeing as you're there, this guy wants to see you and just have a bit of a chat." Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So went in, had a chat with this guy for about half an hour, and at the end he said, "Do you know what?" He said, "You're here." The situation was they had somebody doing the role, but he was in London and he just recovered from chickenpox, I think. So he was having sick notes handed to him on a weekly basis by his doctors. But every week it was kind of like, "Yeah, I'm coming back. And then all of a sudden it was, "No, I'm not."
Mm-hmm.
So this guy said to me, "Look, this other bloke has said that he's going to come back on Wednesday, but he said, do you know what? If you want 2 days work, have 2 days work."
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "Yeah, okay, brilliant." And at the end of the 2 days, he said, "No, you said you're much better than the other bloke." He said, "Do you want to stay for the week?"
Okay.
And then something like about 3 years later, I left that organisation because
Wow. Okay.
I went from like a 2-day contract to a 1-week contract to a 1-month contract to a 3-month contract to a permanent job.
Brilliant.
And it was just because I decided to do that morning.
Mm. Mm.
Just decided to just go and let's see what happens.
Yeah, nothing to lose, I guess, was it at that stage?
Absolutely nothing to lose. And yeah, again, a situation that's given me more experience for what I've done in the future. Rescued the house, managed to survive that,
Great.
and and it did turn around. It was so difficult though at times during that year, and it's the whole situation. Although there is help there, and if I was to give advice to anybody off the back of those 3 experiences for me, it's always about never give up. And it does feel like sometimes you are swimming against all currents and tides in treacle. You just constantly keep going and nothing ever comes back to you, but it will the situation will get better.
You've got all the pressures on you, the financial pressures and the personal pressures, and all the things associated. I think that was really useful, Russ. I obviously didn't know the whole story other than the headlines, if you like. But I think from taken from what you've said, I think it's important to leverage and stay connected with your network, whoever your network is. If you've been in a role for a while and you've been in an industry for a while, you've probably made those connections with your competitors and with other peers. So it's important to reach out. I think also the important thing is also, which on one of these business bulletins, I think Jo Thurman picked up on. She's a career specialist, and it was talking about tailoring the CV to the role. So where you said you took your MBA off the CV and started to get some interest, sometimes, you've got to look at the role, and, if you seem overqualified, you maybe need to tone it down a little bit, and just make sure it's appropriate to what you're going. And you touched on it finally, the tenacity. I guess you've got to have that dogged determination to keep at it, and have a little bit of faith that, there's something there for you at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. So thanks for that. So ultimately, you started your own business. So one option for people, I guess, if they're being made redundant, is to consider that. So tell us a little bit about that. What had you decide to do that, and what recommendations would you have for anybody that happens to be listening and considering that as an option rather than trying to find alternative employment?
Well, I guess the business startup almost came because it was almost redundancy number 4 in a way. Again, the organisation I was working for had downsized quite a lot. I'd kind of had it in the back of my mind in the training industry that I operate in is very heavily biased towards associate trainers who get hired for the week, and you kind of hop around different training organizations, and in the back of my mind I was thinking, that sounds like a nice idea. Maybe that might be the next move. And really the idea of starting up QRB was to do that. And I had a few chats with my boss at the time, because I could see that we were downsizing in a way that the Finden company were doing, and having been there before, you can kind of see the journey that you're on. And I guess what I was thinking was, if I go, I can still come back and work for this company on an associate basis, and it takes my cost out of that business, and it might help them survive. And people have said to me, "What? That seems like a crazy thing to do, Russ. Why don't you just wait until you're made redundant and get the payment?" But it was kind of like, well, I'm still thinking of the people that I work with here, and I was feeling that I wanted to do this, so I just thought, yeah, let's go for it, and see what happens. And even that, when it started, when I had my first month of QRB, I had a month of work actually lined up, and the week before this month, it all disappeared out of the diary. And the first month had nothing in it, and I just had that kind of, oh my word, what on earth have I done kind of moment that I think every small business owner goes through when they start, so it was again, it was a bit of a moment, but again, it's that feeling that this is what I really wanted to do. I really wanted to be master, if you like, of my own destiny in a way now, and kind of take that control back, because if there's one thing that I felt out of all of that redundancy experience, is that I had no control over it. I could see it, but when it happened, or if it happened, was not down to me. And having my own business was like, well, now I've got that control. I'm now taking charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're out there and you're going through this situation, I know we've had another couple of announcements this week which have not been too good, with retail organisations. If you've got something that you really enjoy doing, if you've got a passion for something, then give it a go. It's have a try. I mean, I went the full route and set up a limited company, but you don't have to.
Mhm.
And if you've got a skill, and I think Joe mentioned this a couple of weeks back. Yeah, if you have whatever you do in your job, you have skills there that are transferable to other things.
Mhm.
And I've seen in my network over the last few weeks people that they're interested in photography. So although they've been made redundant, they start doing photography for people,
Mhm.
headshots on LinkedIn and that kind of thing,
Mhm.
and that's helped them get by. And this particular person I know got another job in a different area, but they're now back in employment. But yeah, if you feel like starting it, then seek advice is probably the biggest thing I would say with
Yeah,
this.
I agree.
You know,
Absolutely.
there's plenty of us out here who would be quite happy to have a chat, about being in business on your own, and what it entails and all the rest of it. And there's people that will give her advice on careers or startup business or anything, but always ask somebody. Somebody's been there before you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I'd agree with that, Russ. I think if you know other people that own their small business, have a chat with them. If you know there's a particular industry sector you're looking to get into, reach out to those people. There's local enterprise partnerships. There's also some supportive organisations, part of your local councils, that often offer support for small businesses. Not always money, but sometimes just sort of free support from a business advisor and things like that. So really do take, 'cause it's tough trying to do it on your own, as I'm sure any business owner would say. And you don't have to, to get that help. Networking is a good way of meeting like-minded people and connecting with them both on a social level as well as a business level, so you don't feel that isolation. And also, I think everybody in business needs an ear to bend or a shoulder to cry on at some point. And if you are thinking of starting your own business, absolutely good luck to you. But do get some support from people. Don't do it on your own. So thanks for that, Russ. I appreciate your time. It was a great insight into your journey, and I think we picked up some great points there. What you can see on the screen now, if you're watching the video live or on the replay, is we've alluded to it in in this interview, is we put a website together. It's on the Buzzcom site, buzzcom.co.uk/support, and there's advice there for people who have been made redundant or are looking facing the prospect of redundancy. It's also for employers. Stephen May that commented a little bit earlier, that he's obviously dealing with clients and who go through the denial. And what he's put there is also, it's difficult for the employer as well. I know when I was an operations manager, I sort of jumped into the slot thinking, great promotional opportunity. Then my first job was to sort of close down a little manufacturing outlet we've got with about 10 women and working under a manager, which was not a pleasant thing to have to do. Follow those processes and stuff like that. And also Charles Jones has put a comment as well, seek advice, get that support. Thanks for that, Charles. So do check out that website. Do follow these bulletins. We'll have different people each week, 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, with an aim of just helping you out in whatever you're facing in the current climate. Also, we'll tag Russell in these. So if you've got questions of Russell, if you watching the replay, then please do put a comment on there, and I'm sure he'll be happy to respond. But do go to the website. We're not looking for consultancy fees or things like that. It's just sort of like pay it forward sort of attitude with the people that are contributing, and there's a lot of valuable content that we'll put these bulletins up there as well. So if you happen to listen to this, you might know people that are being made redundant, then please direct them to this site, because there'll be a lot of valuable information that will help them through it. And you know, whether they're looking to get into re-employment or whether they're looking to start a business. So thank you very much for your time again, Russell.
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.